now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. The Synod of Bishops on the Family is drawing to a close at the end of the week, but actually it will go on for another year. This week, a draft document supposedly summarizing the first stage of the discussions was released. It suggested a shift in tone toward gays, cohabitating couples, and fueled talk that the Church might change the way it deals with divorced and remarried Catholics. Judging from the media frenzy, one would have thought Vatican III had been convened. Here to help us make sense of the confusion in the wake of this extraordinary synod, I'm joined from Rome by the editor-in-chief of thecatholicthing.org and an alumni of our own conclave and canonization cruise, Robert Royal. Robert, thanks for being here.
Good to be with you again, Raymond. We're sorry you're not here in Rome.
I know. Well, I was there at the start of it. You know, I can only take so much, Robert. I want to talk about this document itself. That mid-report, the report issued at the midway mark that was supposed to be a summary of the conversations in this synod that have, by the way, been primarily closed to the press. You've been subjected only to the Vatican spokesman. That's your only source of real information. But I want to touch these two basic aspects of the report. It said there are positive aspects of civil unions and cohabitation. And then it said this. It said that homosexual people have gifts and qualities to offer to the Christian community. Are we capable, we the Church, of providing for these people, and that was later amended to welcoming these people, guaranteeing them a place of fellowship in our communities? Oftentimes they want to encounter a church which offers them a welcoming home. Are our communities capable of this, accepting and valuing their sexual orientation without compromising Catholic doctrine on the family and matrimony? What do you make of this, and who is responsible for this report?
Well, it's a very controverted passage for a variety of reasons. You know, it's just a truism to say that gay people, of course, like all of us, have gifts that we can give to others and maybe to the Church as well. It was interesting, a journalist asked the Archbishop who actually wrote that passage, and that's Archbishop Bruno Forte of Italy, was he saying, or was the passage saying, that homosexuals have gifts that come out of their homosexuality? And of course, that's the confusion here. It's not just that they're human beings who have gifts and we want to welcome. There's a difficulty that there seems to be a desire to welcome gayness in itself. And whether that was the intention, it certainly was how it was perceived. And it went out to the world as introducing a great confusion. Some people thought it was wonderful. It looked like a sea change for the Church. For others, it just seemed that they didn't know what the Church could possibly be saying by that.
Robert, a lot of the cardinals coming out of this meeting in the aftermath of this, and apparently there was a lot of objection instantly when it was read, and it was presented first to the media, then to the bishops. That's a rather peculiar trajectory. But I want to read this to you. This is Cardinal Pell and his analysis. He said, the question of communion for divorced and remarried Catholics is but the tip of the iceberg. In seeking to be merciful, someone to open up Catholic teaching on marriage, divorce, civil unions, homosexuality in a radically liberalizing direction, whose fruits we see in other Christian traditions. What are you hearing on the ground? How ferocious has this backlash been, and what's the takeaway?
Well, the term that's being used, as I think you know, Raymond, is gradualism. And gradualism is an idea that's been around a long time in the Church. And what it means is not that we gradually come to know the moral law. What it means is that human beings are imperfect, and of course we all strive in our lives to become more Christ-like, more perfect. But what seems to be the baseline in that language that you just read is that everyone basically is welcome, and that there's no real criticism of the way people are living their lives, that we just, you know, we have to work with people. Now, at a pastoral level, if it's your pastor or some priest that you know, or your confessor or a spiritual advisor, of course, all of that is long been part of the Church. The problem exists, I think, when it looks as if absolutely everyone in the world is somehow part of this gradualist process that some people, some of the bishops at the the Synod are proposing. And I think I have to say that among gay groups and people cohabiting, there isn't a lot of interest in that kind of gradualism. And, and therefore, that's also why we got the pushback from at least 41 of the bishops.
Yeah. I want to get into something else here. And again, the Casper proposal was the first sort of discussion point of this synod going in. This has been almost a year-long conversation. And now the conversation, it seems, has expanded. I want to play a little bite from you. Now, this is our own Edward Penton of the National Catholic Register. He interviewed Casper, and he said this about those 5 reporters, and the Pope hand-picked 5 reporters to write summaries of the discussion of the Synod and the final report. This is what Casper had to say of them.
I think the majority of these 5 people are open people and they want to go on.
Right.
At the end, one will do it.
Yes. But they will do it and they will have community.
And the problem is also there are different problems in the different continents, in different cultures.
Yes.
And Africa is totally different from West, right? The West. And also Asia is something. And then the Muslim countries.
Yes.
Very different.
Yes.
Sensitive, especially about gays. You cannot speak about this with Africans and with Muslim people of Muslim countries.
Your reaction to that, and what impact are the Africans now playing in this synod?
Well, it's no secret that certain members of the Synod don't like the idea that Asians and Africans, who come from more traditional societies, obviously, want to get their 2 cents in about the larger view of marriage. We see a much softer view coming, or a more unfaithful view coming out of Germany and a few other places as well. Just today, it's quite interesting, it's just today that Wilfred Fox Napier, the Cardinal from South Africa, who was very good the other day, by the way, at the press briefing, was appointed to that drafting committee, as was Dennis Hart, who's the Archbishop of Melbourne in Australia. Two native English-speaking contributors, so that's added to the other 5. But a very interesting thing that Napier said was that a message went out when that draft came out on Monday, and it wasn't the true message, but it was the message. It was the one that, both in terms of the substance and in the terms of the way it was released, it sent out to the whole world a mistaken notion of what the bishops had been doing. And he actually used this word. He said, we find ourselves now so far behind in the media struggle that the situation is almost irredeemable, his word.
No, we played that earlier, and I want to share this a little bit with you and ask this question. And I mean, I guess it's a provocative one. When you hear comments like this from Cardinal Casper, who has really been in the driver's seat driving this conversation since February, when he says the majority of these 5 people, the reporters, are open people who want to go on with this, it seems as if this idea, this notion of where the Church should go, is almost pre-cooked into the recipe here, that it was a predetermined outcome. Is that what you're hearing? Is that what you're seeing?
Well, there are, you know, as you know, the sessions are not open, so there's no direct reporting about what's going on. But one hears that Cardinal Pell stood up and say this is being railroaded, you know, this has to be moved in a different direction. One of the interesting things to me is that it seems that what we thought was going to be the most hot-button issue, namely, should communion be allowed to divorced and remarried Catholics who have not received an annulment, that issue seems to have almost entirely dropped away. And what instead has come to the fore is this much more broad gauge approach to thinking that there's even been a debate about these Italian terms, accogliere, to welcome people, accompagnare, to accompany people, camminare, to walk alongside people. So what started as what we thought was just a kind of a technical issue, and actually some of the Synod Fathers have said that the debate inside the room has been, the theologians have to work that out, and over the next year we'll figure out, you know, where we go with that. Actually, it's this larger orientation toward accepting people in a way that seems very unclear, that makes both bishops and priests and lay people quite nervous.
Yeah, no, well, last week in my interview with Cardinal Burke, he said beyond this issue of divorced and remarried Catholics and whether they should be admitted back to communion with a fast pass, if you will, without, end running a annulment process, that the burning issues, the dark horse issues here were going to be contraceptives and gay marriage and welcoming gays into the church, and all that apparently turned out to be true. Here's the big question. What role is the Pope playing in all of this? I mean, he handpicked these 5 reporters. He seems to be encouraging this debate, and it's a chaotic one. We have to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just today that it was announced that Cardinal Napier and Archbishop Hart were added, the 2 that I mentioned just a bit earlier. So, in some ways it looks like the complaint that there are no Africans. I personally think Napier was splendid in that. I didn't see the segment that you played earlier, but he was absolutely splendid in the room the day that he came in. And I would like to think that he was appointed because of the quality of his intervention, but I'm afraid it's simply because they felt bad that there wasn't an African and then there needed to be somebody from Oceania. But there's very little talk about what the Holy Father has been doing. We do know that he saw the document, the relatio, before it came out on Monday. I know from a reliable source that it was delivered to him on Saturday. He returned it, having read it on Sunday. But you're right, it's a chaotic process. We just heard at the press briefing this morning that in addition to the 10 reports from the 10 small language groups, there are 700 requested modifications to a text that's about 7 or 8 pages long. So you can imagine Father Lombardi said they're not even sure that they're going to be able to deal with those 700 modifications by Saturday night when the Synod is supposed to officially come to an end.
Final question, Robert, before we go. This is a 12-month process now that we're going to be looking at. What do you think happens in this intervening 12 months as there's a bit of a repose here between one synod and the final synod on the family?
Well, I think the most likely thing, I'm not saying that this is the best thing, I think the most likely thing is we're going to see something very much like a political campaign, where there are different factions, there are different parties that are going to be jockeying for position. It's unfortunate that we're now finding ourselves in these circumstances, but I don't see what else could possibly happen other than there's going to be this probably global sifting through of the things that we've been talking about these past few days. I don't know exactly where that's going to turn out, but I have to say some of my friends, some of my very best friends back in America have been counseling patients and calm, and all that is quite good. But I don't think it's a good idea for any of us who believe in traditional church teaching to just assume that the process is going to work out okay, that this is what happens when you have a large group that get together and try to sift through differences. I think that everyone is going to have to be very vigilant over the next 12 months. You should talk with your bishop, talk with your priests, get involved any way that you can, because this is a major turning point. I came, as you know, I said this to you several months ago, I was going to come. I had an intuition, not knowing what we've seen this past week, but I knew something was going to happen. And it's now clear that some people are actually saying at least it's good that we now clearly see where the battle lines are drawn in the global church.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about what they are, and everybody has made their viewpoint known. I guess the lingering question here is, what of Pope Francis? What is he to say? And we'll find that out in the coming days. Thank you, Robert Royal, and we'll be checking in with you. Hopefully you can join us next week. We're going to have a round table on the outcome of this synod, or this extraordinary synod. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, Raymond, good to be with you.
You can read all of Robert Royal's extensive analysis and reporting on the Synod on the Family by visiting thecatholicthing.org.